Ladies and gentlemen, the ceasefire between US and Iran is coming to an end, and the elusive peace negotiation between US and Iran is just not happening. So what's happening right now and what will happen later as we unfold this in this video? So this is day 52. The ceasefire is ending and is war returning? So what will happen next? And all these have serious implication to the economy of the world and also your investments. So remember, hit subscribe as I unfold to you all these things happening on a real-time basis. Well, as Singapore and Malaysian investors watching my news, you're first in line to get this breaking news. Well, the ceasefire expiry window is over. In fact, it will expire at Singapore time Thursday around 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. Why is there a time range? Is because Trump did not specifically say which hour, but it expires around that time. I think that there are couple of scenarios that can happen. So please watch till the end to see what are the scenarios. So first of all, this is a very fragile ceasefire from the start. And I'm quite surprised that it lasted until now. And in fact, there are cases of some firing already. But, as it stands right now, it's still a good ceasefire in the sense that we don't have airstrikes and missiles and drones and things like that. But unfortunately, right now, there are a couple of bad news. Number one is that the talks that are scheduled in Islamabad, well, the US is sending the vice president and the chief negotiators. Iran haven't sent anyone. And in fact, they find it meaningless. We'll talk about that. And Trump is saying that, well, I don't think it's very likely that I'll extend it. And the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Expanding on the situation in Islamabad, on the US side, wow, they're sending the full entourage there. We have got Vice President J.D. Vance departing Washington on Tuesday evening, and with him are the envoys and multiple military vehicles already landed in Pakistan. On the Iranian side, wow, nobody is turning up, at least not for now. Could there be more people turn up later? Yes. But as it stands right now, nothing. The foreign ministry have outright said, we have dispatched no one. No team has been dispatched there. And the chief negotiator, Ghalibaf, is still in Tehran. And the foreign minister and his deputy is also in Tehran. These are the people that will be involved in the negotiation, and they are not there. So at this stance right now, the US is going to show up without Iran there. So this is a very unusual situation. Now, this also reflects something which is very bad on US. US is more desperate than Iran. It's very clear, right? US is more desperate than Iran for a peace deal. And the Iranians are not stupid. They know that as well. And this is where the Americans are quite dumb to show that they are desperate for a deal. Well, from the position of the Iranians, they outright say there will be no talks under the shadow of threats. You want to talk to me? You talk to me without threatening me. That's basically what it says. So the parliament speaker, Ghalibaf, basically said Tehran does not accept negotiation under the shadows of threat. We are prepared to review new cards on the battlefield. Emphasis, we are prepared to review new cards on the battlefield. What on earth is that? So the entire media caught this. What is these new cards? New weapons, new positions, new help. Are the Chinese going to help them now? Are the Russians going to help? North Korea going to help? We don't know. At this juncture, this is a very interesting, I don't know, intentional slip of tongue. We don't know, right? So at this juncture, basically the Iranians are saying, I'm not going to talk to you. Now, things might change, but right now, only the Americans are flying over to Pakistan. So the counterparty is not there. So, well, Donald Trump right now is just continue to give pressure to the Iranians, but he himself is under pressure. So, as it stands right now, his position is clear. The US blockade of the Straits of Hormuz remain until the deal is signed. And for the extension of the ceasefire, highly unlikely. That's what he says. And he basically says that, if you want the Straits of Hormuz to be reopened, you must open it first, okay? And of course, he wants the uranium from the Iranians. And right now, he basically says that if you do not deal by Wednesday, I'll bomb you back to Stone Ages. Well, the Iranians say, up yours, I'm not going to cave in to your threats. Now, let's not forget, over the weekend, there was a seizure of a cargo ship called the Touska. The Iranian ship Touska, for 6 hours, ignored the warning by the Americans, and the American destroyer eventually tell them, move away from the engine room, we're going to fire at the engine room, which they did, okay? After they fire at the engine room, the vessel stays still, and after that, the US Marines went in and arrested everybody. And the cargo of the ship is reported to be in millions. We don't know what is it. And the Iranians were very unhappy about it. They demanded for the immediate release of the ship and crew and basically say, we will punish you back. But by the way, they talk big also. Nothing has happened so far. So I don't think the Americans are happy about it, but the Americans are basically saying that, okay, another one will talk big. So both sides are talking big. Just to be very clear, both sides are ready for war. And this is not just posturing. So on the Iranian side, the IRGC commander basically said that the armed forces are ready for immediate and decisive response and claimed that they have an upper hand militarily, including at the Straits of Hormuz, and accused Donald Trump of false narrative. So to be frank, that is true, right? Everybody knows that Donald Trump is just throwing a lot of smoke grenade and smoking out everybody. Well, the Americans, while Trump talked a lot of hot air, but the military buildup is not hot air. It is very serious, and they are now sending more and more troops, ships, aircraft, equipment, weapons, all to the Middle East. For what? I think this is positioning for a very likely and imminent ground assault. Now, the IEA, International Energy Association, basically came out and said a very concerning news. He says that, so the International Energy Association Executive Director came out and said that this is the biggest energy crisis in history. In fact, combined with the gas crisis in Russia, this is the biggest crisis in history. In fact, if you were to combine the 1973 oil crisis plus 1979 plus 1990 plus 2022, if you combine all of them together with the Russian gas crisis, this ranks number one. And even though they have released 400 million barrels of strategic reserve, it is still not enough. And they are looking at this situation with a lot of concern. Now, let me just say this, we got to watch over the next 48 hours, things might happen. The number one thing to look at is, are the Iranians sending a delegation to Islamabad, Pakistan? If they are, then there is hope for peace. Now, if they are not, then that's a very, very different story. Next thing is, does Donald Trump resume bombing? So the key thing is what will happen in the next 48 hours. Number one to watch out for is Iran going to send a delegation to negotiate with the Americans? If the answer is yes, then there is hope. If the answer is no, then the hope is lower. Number two, when the time reaches the ceasefire deadline, is Donald Trump going to resume bombing? Well, my guess is he won't, at least not for now, because he's probably trying to give negotiation a chance. But will he strike ultimately? Yes, if this stalemate goes on and his troops are all building up. So really, will there be any more accident or incident in the Straits of Hormuz? If there are, then this will trigger another blow up. And if all these bad things were to happen, then the crude oil prices will go up again. 110, 120, even $130. And if that will happen, then God help us all. There are three scenarios to look out for over the next 7 days. Number one is they have a handshake. If that will happen, then everything is fine. At least the oil prices will come down, maintain, my guess, around $80, $90. and the stock market will have a very powerful relief that goes on, breaking record after record. But this is, at this juncture, lower probability than what I think is the base case. The base case is they have an extended stalemate, right? No peace, no war. So basically, there are no deals, they are signed, and there are no strike happen, just business as usual. And with this, Donald Trump either verbally extends the ceasefire or basically just say, we're going to strike you, but never strike. So in this kind of case where they are in a state of tension, but no actual striking, the oil stays elevated. And finally, the last case is if all war resume, then, as I said, God help us all. But in this scenario, there are two sub-scenarios as well. Who wins? Who wins? If the Americans quickly have a decisive attack and push the Iranians back, and free up the Straits of Hormuz, then that will be a great situation. But if they don't or lose the war in some form, then we think that there could be a possibility of oil spiking up massively, and then the situation will look very bad on the stock market. So what should we do, guys? Well, at this juncture, actually speaking, just prepare dry powder and do nothing. So what I do right now is just watch the situation and see how the economic response is to all these three. The most important thing are your funds in your CPF for Singaporeans and in EPF for Malaysians. They give very high returns, and I think this is the best place to put them in as a financial safety net. And if the market do respond down, we take advantage of it. If they don't, we just ride with the wave. Now, this is where quite a few of you written to me and basically thank me that you have deployed some dry powder when the market was minus 10%. Congratulations. And many of you expressed that you're hoping for more or more to come again. Me too. I'll just say this. We cannot predict markets, right? We cannot predict whether there'll be a crash in the near future, but we don't need to predict. We just need to react. When opportunity strikes, okay, then let's go in. If it doesn't, let's wait out. So I'll just say this. If you watched my live stream yesterday, I mentioned this. The likelihood of a second crash is high by historical record because this is the midterm election year. And in fact, it may not even come from this oil crisis, but closer to November, the chances of a second crash is high. So I would say that I will take advantage of it seriously when the day comes. Many of you would have realized by now that intelligence doesn't count much in investment. It's all mastery of your emotions, especially patience, especially the management of greed and fear. So I'll just say, through experience, I found that the best investors in the world are those who are emotionally neutral. They neither get joy when the market goes up and they neither get fear when the market goes down, and they are very patient. So I can't tell you what you should do, but for me, this is a virtue I'll follow. Remember, hit subscribe and follow me very closely. I'll see you tonight in the live stream.